People often say to me, wow, you're so good at remembering names. This is because I have been in a room with up to 170 people and remembered every single person's name. How do I do it? Well, I am not necessarily a genius. I don't have a foolproof plan. And sometimes some of the things I've been told over the years of how to remember people's names have not worked for me. One of the things that I do when I'm facilitating or working with a large group is I always try and introduce myself beforehand. So as people come in, I will go up to them, I will introduce myself, I will shake their hands, I will say, hi, my name is Sue, I will get their name, etc. And that's hopefully something fairly normal. And I try and do it even if I've got 100 people in the room. I try and get around as many people as possible. Then what I do, which is what people don't see, is I create a map of the room. So each table, and I write their names down. And I have learnt that if I go up to 2 people and I introduce myself and I don't write their names down straight away and I then go to a 3rd and a 4th, I will not remember it. And people have said to me, oh, well, that's a bit easy. You just repeat their name. Have you ever tried that? Somebody says, hi, my name's Petunia, and you go, hi, Petunia. That's annoying, but it still doesn't stay in my head. Maybe it stays in yours, I don't know, but it definitely didn't work for me. Writing it down did. So I write their name of where they're sitting. What people don't see, so what they do see first of all, what they do see is then for the rest of the day, I get their names right. So I say, yes, Henry, you had a question. Yes, Raj, what can I do for you? Or Ashram, yes, Petunia, woo. And I'm using their names as we go through the day. And this is why people then say to me, wow, how did you get everybody's name right, etc. But what people don't see is when they're coming into the room and I'm introducing myself and I'm moving around, and when they're settling in, or maybe they've got an introduction or somebody else is doing a session before my keynote, what they don't see is I am practicing. I am looking around the room, and if I forget anybody's name, I look down at my little map and I go, oh yeah, that's Raj. Okay, brilliant. And I test myself. As they move around, as they chat, I will then continue to test myself. Now, this might only be a few minutes. It might be 5 minutes, it might be 10 minutes. And sometimes there's somebody that I might not even get to meet that I can't possibly. And if they've got name tags, I will often go and look and check in. But this is the interesting thing. People think that I'm really good at remembering names. All I've done is I've found a system, and it's something anybody can learn. Now, as I say, there are lots of tips and tricks that you might hear about improving your memory, the memory palace and things like that, connecting it to things you already know, all those sorts of things. But one of the things that I find really interesting about names is the number of people that then say to me after they've said, oh, you're so good at remembering names, they will say, I am hopeless at remembering names. I'm terrible at remembering names. Now, can I just say, the minute you say that, you have just told your brain not to bother. Now, I believe your name is the most important word in your language for you. That's the word that you have probably heard the most. It is the most important word for you. And it is my job, therefore, to try and remember it. Now, can I say I'll remember it in a month's time? No. But while I'm with you, I hope I will choose to remember it. But the minute I say, oh, I'm hopeless at remembering names, I have just given my brain permission not to bother. Consider that for a moment. The other thing to bear in mind is when we do this when it comes to learning. So let's imagine you're listening to this now and you're going, oh, I already know that. The minute you say something like, I already know that, you've stopped being curious. If you say, oh, I'm no good at learning new things, you've given your brain permission not to learn. Think about this. The minute you start to be curious, when you start to lean in and you start to think, oh, I kind of already know some of that, but that links to this, this, and this. Oh, I wonder if, and your brain can go off where it makes connections to what you already know. That is when your brain can create those new neural connections, your brain can learn. Now that's really important because learning is essential for us. Yes, we've got things at the tips of our fingers now, through the internet, through AI, etc. We can find out anything. But learning is still important. We have to learn in order to grow, to have relationships, to lead, to do whatever your area of expertise. You need to learn things. We can't just rely on technology to help us. So what can you do to encourage your brain to learn? Well, guess what? The Ebbinghaus learning curve, or forgetting curve, depending on which way you want to call it, states that basically after 24 hours of learning something, 70% of what you've learned is lost. And it's steepest just after learning. So it's, and it indicates that we forget more than we retain. Just think about that. Even if we've lost 70% 24 hours after, we've still got 30%. We've still learnt something maybe. One of the things that's useful for us is thinking about how do we learn and how can we improve our brain's potential to learn. And this is important whether you're a leader, whether you're a parent, whether you're a facilitator, is how do you encourage people to learn? Okay, so one thing that's really useful, I'm going to talk to you about a very simple framework called the Ages model, but you can use whatever words you like. First thing is attention. Have you got someone's attention? If you're not even listening in the first place, if you're not listening to me now, how can you possibly learn anything? You can't, because you're not paying attention. So attention is one thing. Attention is really critical if we want to learn. Now, guess what? If you're not interested in something, you're probably not paying attention. If you are overwhelmed and your poor little brain fuel is low, you are probably not paying attention. So attention is important. Then generation. Generation is when you generate links to what you already know. Now, I love this because that's when it makes things meaningful. Again, if you're listening to any of these YouTube videos or other things, courses, other things you learn, if you're in the room with somebody, if you are learning in a meeting, if you are paying attention, yes, but then if you can generate links to what you already know, your brain is making things meaningful. Now, what does that mean? It means we generate links to things we already know. So if you think about what this means in day-to-day, imagine you as a child, or imagine if you have children. You will find that you don't teach a child every animal in the kingdom of animals. You teach them categories first. You might start with a dog and a cat. You don't teach them every single version of a cat. You start with cat. And you might be looking at a lion at some point or a tiger, and you might expand. But then and only then will you get into lynx or manx or Maine Coons or etc, etc, etc. You don't start with them because the child's brain needs to connect to what it already knows, as in generate links to existing learning. When you are trying to learn something, one of the things that will really help you retain that information is if you can generate links to what you already know. Okay, the third thing is emotion. Guess what? Emotions play a huge part in your ability to learn. We know that the brain, when you're asleep in particular, lays down new learning or processes learning and emotions, and it lays down new memories. So think about this. If you learn something today, while you're asleep tonight, your brain is potentially processing that and allowing you to lay down new memories, to learn basically, to create something in your head, a new neural connection. Now, emotion is important for that. Now, unfortunately, negative emotion can be important for that, and that's why we may end up with things like PTSD or particular trauma when we've had a strong negative emotion and it heightens the memory. And yet also consider that when you are trying to learn something new, your brain needs emotion. Are you interested? Are you curious? Are you leaning in? Are you intrigued? Are you having fun? Are you smiling? Are you laughing? Those sorts of things, those positive emotions that pull you into something, can actually create the ability to learn. We know that when people are highly anxious, learning doesn't occur. If you imagine when you were a child, or if you ever showed up at work at a course that you had to do and you were feeling overwhelmed, you were feeling anxious, you are not taking in new information. But positive emotions pull us. But also remember, positive emotions produce dopamine, which allows the brain to fire and create those neural connections. Okay, so attention. Generation, generate links to what you already know, and then emotions, positive emotions aid learning. And the fourth one is one that you would have heard numerous times before, which is spacing or repetition, as in we need to hear things sometimes numerous times in order for it to sink in. You might have learned loads of things about how to be a better leader, how your brain works, how to deal with emotions, how to do certain things. Sometimes it takes several attempts for that to sink into our head. So it's not just repetition, it's spacing. When we space things out and we maybe hear things in different ways, we maybe revisit things, we listen to the same video clip numerous times in order to allow things to sink in, and possibly because we're enjoying it, we might find that it really allows our brain that repetition and spacing, which again, when you go to sleep, lay down new memories, we reinforce it a bit later, lay down more memories, strengthen those neural pathways, and guess what? We have now embedded or embodied that new element of learning. Now, what does this matter to you? Well, when I started, I said, I've remembered a room full of 170 people and not got a name wrong all day. Now consider how that plays out with other things in your life, other things you might be curious about and you want to learn. What effort are you putting in that allows your brain to make it easier? I now find it easy to do my little maps, to write the names and to practice, and it doesn't take me long now. But initially it took me a lot longer. It takes time, it takes effort. But now my brain is attuned to it and I can usually remember names really quickly and easily. But equally, I don't say to myself, I'm no good at remembering names, because the minute I do, I've just given my brain permission to not bother. What are you doing in your brain that allows you to learn? And where do you sometimes say things that allows your brain to go, oh well, I don't have to bother?